Hi everybody, my name is Sean Barlow, and I'd like to talk to you about the importance of vaccines and herd immunity. So imagine for a moment that you're at home one day and your child starts crying inconsolably and you can't figure out why. You take them to the doctor, they do an initial exam, run some tests, and come to find out your baby has measles, which according to the CDC is a vaccine-preventable disease that still kills 167,000 children each year around the world. But how did your baby get measles? You had them vaccinated. Well, the likely cause is there was a breakdown in herd immunity. So what I'd like to talk about today are some of the diseases that vaccines prevent, how the diseases themselves are far worse than the side effects of the vaccines, and how herd immunity works and why it's important. Now, I am in no way associated with any doctor's offices, pharmaceutical companies, or what have you. I am a father of two healthy young boys who have been vaccinated, and I did several hours of research before making that decision myself. And I hope my research and me giving you the information from it will help you make an educated decision yourself. Now let's talk about some vaccine preventable diseases. According to the Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC, and the World Health Organization, also known as the WHO, prior to the advent of vaccines, smallpox killed 300 million people between 1900 and 1979. Polio killed or paralyzed 350,000 people each year, and measles killed 2.6 million people each year. But thanks to vaccines, smallpox was eradicated worldwide in 1979 according to UNICEF. Currently, polio cases are down 99%, with only 37 cases being reported worldwide in 2016. And measles cases are down 79% worldwide, although it is still the leading cause of death among small children, especially in countries where they have limited access to vaccines. There are over 20 diseases that can be prevented by vaccination, and they save countless lives each year. But what are some of the side effects? Let's talk about that next. When considering the side effects of vaccines, we must compare that to the symptoms, morbidity, and mortality of the disease itself. Morbidity is defined by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary as a disease state or ill health, and mortality as the proportion of deaths to a population. The symptoms, morbidity, and mortality of a vaccine-preventable disease are generally far worse than the side effects of the vaccine itself. And according to the CDC, any vaccine can have side effects that are generally very mild and may include headache, soreness, and bruising around the injection site. Serious side effects are very rare and are usually caused by an allergic reaction to something in the vaccine mixture. Let's take a look at one example. Let's use measles as an example. As we discussed earlier, it's still one of the leading causes of death of young children around the world, and prior to vaccines killed 2.6 million people each year. Some of its symptoms include blindness, encephalitis, ear infections, severe dehydration and diarrhea, and severe respiratory infections, and it affects young children and the elderly the most. However, only 1 in 1 million people has a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine for measles, which is given as part of a combination vaccine called the MMR, or measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. And while deafness, long-term seizures, coma, or lowered consciousness have been reported as severe side effects for this vaccine, it happens so rarely that it's been impossible to tell if it's caused by the vaccine or some underlying condition. And while this is only one example, I urge you to go to the CDC website or the WHO website and look through the databases of symptoms, morbidity, and mortality for the diseases and compare them to the side effects for the vaccinations. Now let's talk about herd immunity, why it's important, and how it works. So vaccines.gov explains herd immunity this way. When a certain proportion of the community is immunized against a contagious disease, most members of the community are protected against that disease because there's little chance of an outbreak. So even those who are ineligible for certain vaccines, such as infants, pregnant women, or the immunocompromised, they still get some protection against that disease because the spread is contained. Basically, what they're saying is that if a disease can easily infect people, it has more chances to mutate, and when it mutates, it can be passed on to those who have been immunized for a previous version of that disease. But if enough people are vaccinated, it stops it from mutating, and thus stops it from spreading to those who have already been vaccinated. Let's look at a short animation created by Edmund Helmer, who's a data scientist and vaccination supporter. It's a really easy way to visualize how herd immunity works. So as you can see, protection against vaccine-preventable diseases is only made possible through herd immunity and having a large portion of the population immunized. So the next time you hear someone say, well, why does it matter if I get vaccinated? As long as you are, you'll be fine. You can explain to them why this idea is not only flawed, but is also dangerous. This idea is exactly what led to the pertussis outbreak in Japan in 1979. According to the CDC in 1974, 80% of Japanese children were being vaccinated for pertussis, or whooping cough, and only 393 cases were reported that year. Over the next 5 years, vaccination numbers fell down to just 10%. So in 1979, there were 13,000 reported cases of pertussis, and 41 people died. So I'm glad I was able to talk to you today about some of the diseases that vaccines prevent, how the diseases themselves are far worse than the associated side effects of the vaccine, and herd immunity and how it works and why it's important. Again, I'm not affiliated with any pharmaceutical company or anything like that. I'm just a concerned father that has taken the time to do lots of research about this subject. And I also understand how some people can be afraid to vaccinate their children because there are so many and there are fears of autism, etc., etc. But I hope I've given you enough information today that you can educate them about the benefits of vaccination and herd immunity. Because remember, if herd immunity breaks down, we're all at risk, whether we've been vaccinated or not.